So, here's the truth. It's impossible to escape judgment. Because of the laws of cause and effect, every action is a judgment in itself, right? Every effect, I should say every effect or every fruit of our action is already a judgment that's already been passed, right? So when I say the Creator is not going to help, or when I say save yourself, the rules are so precise that there is no possibility of helping. All the help is already there. We have minds to think, right? We have consciousness. We have the ability to learn. We have the ability to recognize patterns in this world, right? If you touch fire, cause, you're going to burn. Effect, that burn is judgment, right? It teaches you not to do it again. That's the consequence. That's the judgment that's passed. The consequence, right? If you don't breathe, cause. If you hold your breath, right? If you have no air, cause. You don't breathe, effect. That is the judgment, right? If the wind doesn't blow, right? Cause. The trees don't move, right? They don't sway back and forth. That's the effect. So the consequences of our actions is already judgment. People are facing judgment every single day, right? If you don't hunt, if you don't work, cause, you don't eat, effect. Not eating is the judgment. It is the culmination of the action. The starvation itself is the judgment, right? There's so many examples of this. Like, you can go on and on. If you take the time and think and reflect on your actions, you can see we're being judged every single day by our own actions, right? For example, you want to have a child, right? You sleep with a woman, right? You don't marry her, that's the cause. If her character is good, you're lucky. If her character is bad, oh well. If she takes you to court and for you to pay child support, that is judgment of the consequences of your actions, right? The list goes on and on and on and on. Human beings innately understand judgment, that consequences exist. This is why we create rules, morality. This is why we create principles to understand these things. This is why we have generational teachings. This is why we have a court system, a judicial system, because we innately understand cause and effect. We may not articulate, not everybody can articulate it the way that some can, but we innately understand this, right? If I go outside and it's wintertime and I do not wear a coat, a scarf, a hat, and gloves, right? And I'm wearing summer clothes to go outside, right? Cause, the effect, I get sick, I catch a cold, whatever the case may be. That is judgment. The consequences of our action is judgment, whether good or bad. If I went to school and I graduated, right? If I went to school, cause, graduation, effect. The graduation is the judgment. It's the reward of my actions. So this is why when people think they can escape judgment, it's impossible. Impossible. You can delay it, You can prolong it, but it's going to happen regardless. Whether it takes a year, 2 years, 4 years, 10 years, even 100 years from now, you're going to face the consequences of your actions, regardless, either in this life or the afterlife or the beyond. You can't escape it. This is how cause and effect works. Like, it's crazy how people think sometimes. I mean, granted, we don't think of consequences and rewards for or the effects of our actions as judgment, but it is a judgment, right? It's a judgment not based on the Creator, but the judgment itself is a reflection of who you are and what you've done. You see, this is why I said, save yourself, right? I'm not denying the existence of a Creator, but the Creator has created this world in such a way that it is impossible, literally impossible, for anything to deviate, because everything works perfectly. Whatever you do stays in this reality. It doesn't disappear. It cannot disappear. You're asking for magic, right? You can't just, snap your fingers and erase the consequences of your actions. It's impossible. Reality is set up in such a way that everything that you do stays within this reality. And the reason why it stays in this reality, because what you do, right, is evidence and proof of what you've done. It is the effect of your actions. That's why you cannot rewind time. You can't undo the effect. You see, it's fantastical thinking. It's like a fantasy world to think that you can erase time or try to erase the consequences of your actions. No. Impossible. Impossible. Everything that we do, everything that we say has an automatic effect. You see, when you say something to somebody, you demoralize their spirit, right? You think that's not going to affect you when it's coming back? Right? You've already planted the seeds inside the individual and crushed their spirit. You've crushed their spirit. Right? The potential that was in them. Right? This is why you got to, every word that we say, we got to be careful. There's life and death in the power of the tongue. You can destroy yourself with the words that you say, right? The more you repeat, the same things. I'm no good. I'll never amount to this. I'll never amount to that. If you keep repeating it to yourself, eventually it's going to take effect to the point where you start believing it, right? And then you fulfill that prophecy. You fulfill what your words say, because those are seeds inside of you. This is why you have to constantly train your mind, constantly tell yourself positive things, constantly rebuke certain thoughts in your mind, constantly self-motivate yourself, right? Start believing it so that way actions that can take root, actions can take form, because based on what you say and what you think, actions take form, right? I cannot do anything without thoughts. So if I think horrible thoughts, negative thoughts, I will produce negative actions, right? If I think positive thoughts, I reinforce myself with positive thinking, I will produce positive actions, right? So I'll give you another example. And this is these are some hard sayings. It's a very hard saying, but and this is extremely difficult, right? Because there's certain actions that we take, we don't mean to take them, but it still can cause negative effects upon us. For instance, you invested money in stocks, or you try to invest your money in, you try to save up money in a bank, right? You're working hard, whatever the case may be, right? The stock market goes bad. The bank goes bankrupt, or whatever the case may be, and you lose all that money, right? It's easy to blame the bank, right? It's easy to blame what's going on in the financial world, the financial sector. It's easy to blame them, right? Because you could say mismanagement, misuse. Yes, that's true. But you also invested in it, right? You played a part in this. Whether you thought it was going to be beneficial or not beneficial, you participated in it, and you lost your money. So this is why cause and effect is ruthless. It is painfully ruthless. Like, and this is why many people have regret. This is what regret is all about. Regret, shame, they wish they had second chances. It's because they understood the consequences of their actions, right? There are so many poor people. Whew. So many poor people in this world. We're not going to talk about colonization, slavery. We're not going to talk about those things, right? Because those are different types of effects. However, because those things, it's somewhat unavoidable, right? You have evil people that took on actions that affected everybody else and caused them to be in certain conditions. But these people themselves are not going to avoid the punishment of their actions. They may be reaping the benefits of wrongdoing, right? They may be living lavishly because they stole resources. They've trampled so many souls. They've taken the lives of so many people. They too will face judgment. Don't think they're going to escape. However, there are so many poor people in this world that cause their own poverty, right? They didn't take the right steps, right? They probably lost their money gambling. They probably, didn't save. They probably, spend recklessly. There's so many people that cause their own poverty, and the poverty itself is judgment. Is the judgment that they're facing. Now, can you after you face your own judgment, is it possible to change, to grow from there? Of course it can. If you understand the actions that you've taken that led you to the conditions that you're in today, if you can understand the principles of cause and effect, if you can understand that you have the power to make change, sure, you can remove yourself from poverty. These are lessons so that way we can learn and get better, right? So even if you had a setback, and I want to encourage people, even if you have many setbacks, you can still bounce back. You can still take the right course of action today. You can plant the seeds today in order to change your life in the future, right? I'll give you an example. There are some people, right, that probably dropped out of school. There's some mothers that, that have children and it caused them a major setback, but they still continue to push. They still continue to go to school. They still got graduation and they changed their life around. There's people that have lost tremendous amounts of money, right? But they understood how the financial system worked. They understood that, okay, this is the money that I lost. If I invest it properly, I can bounce back, make back my money, or double it, right? There's still ways to bounce back and become better, right? So even if you face a tremendous setback, even if you feel like your life is stagnant, if you feel like, that you've messed up big time, I'm here to tell you, if you start sowing the seeds today, right now, today, and you're consistent, things will change. Incremental change is still change, and it's still a fantastic change, right? Change doesn't happen overnight. It's incremental change. Put yourself in the right position to succeed. Gain the skills necessary for you to succeed. Remember, you are a seed, and the potential in the seed, once it's planted on solid ground and it's nurtured correctly, it will grow. And what I mean by that is you are the seed. All the skills, all the knowledge that's inside of you is the potential within you as the seed. All you need to do is work, place yourself in the right conditions, the right spot at the right time, right? This is akin to you being planted in the soil, right? And then the consistency is the watering. Your consistent action, your consistent work is like watering the plant. It's like watering yourself. And then eventually you grow. You've learned more skills. You've gotten more experiences. You've gotten that promotion. You've leveled up, right? You got a new job. That is the growth and maturity that we all experience. So even if you have a setback, things can still work out in your favor. You see? So this is why we have to think before we act. Think twice, 3 times, 4 times before we act, because every action is, when the consequences come, the fruits of our action is the judgment. Right? Teenagers have this tendency to rebel against their parents. Their parents tell you, come home at a certain time. The streets is not safe for you. And they stay past their time. They break curfew. Something happens. I don't know, maybe they got mixed up with the wrong crowd. Maybe they was in a place that they wasn't supposed to be. Now they get locked up. Now they realize, man, I should have listened. Because you didn't listen, cause the effect is maybe now you got into trouble. That's the effect. You see? So, please understand this. You cannot escape judgment. It's impossible. Impossible, impossible, impossible. Don't be arrogant. Don't be foolish to think that you can cheat the system, right? Cause and effect, equivalent exchange demands that you, for whatever output that you want, the desired output requires the input to match in order to have the output. Think of the input as the key and the output as the door to unlock your dreams. You need the correct key, right, to put in the correct output, right, which is the key lock, in order to unlock your dreams. Without the proper key, which is a metaphor without the proper effort, without the proper energy, you cannot get the desired effect. You cannot have the output that you want. The fruit of your labor will not manifest. Okay?